With so many versions out there, which could be the best considering their power level and the feats they accomplished during the war and their own origin? Today, I'll rank them from worst to best version of each. Comment which is your favorite version. Flaxen Mark. This version of Mark got tired of fighting for justice itself, so he decided to join the invaders. He betrayed his own values as the hero he once was because he stopped caring about humanity itself, which shows he wasn't very intelligent. Something important to mention is that he was among the first to die when he tried to attack the Pentagon itself. Even so, he was quite strong because he managed to cause quite a bit of damage before falling. For being one of the first to fall, he'd be the worst despite showing that sometimes brute force isn't everything. Mohawk Invincible. This version of Mark combines brutality with a pretty twisted sense of humor. His blue suit with black tights gives him quite an intimidating appearance, but what really scares is the smile he maintains while destroying everything in his path. With his shaved head and carefree attitude, he enjoys watching his enemies suffer before finishing them off. Unlike other Marks who have deeper reasons to fight, this one acts purely on impulse. He doesn't follow a plan or ideology, he simply does whatever he damn well pleases without worrying about the consequences. In every fight, he mocks his opponents with quite sarcastic comments, as if everything were a game to him. But though he seems carefree, his strength is quite impressive. Without much effort, he became the leader of the Viltrumanites in his universe. He achieved this in the most brutal way possible, killing his own father so no one could challenge him. However, he doesn't rule with a clear purpose. He's not interested in strengthening the empire or conquering other worlds. He just enjoys the power and follows his own destructive impulses. He doesn't think about the future or the fate of his people or the destiny of his own race. He just wants to have fun while the universe burns around him. This Mohawk Mark is pure chaos with immense power. He doesn't seek glory nor has a grand objective. He simply follows instinct, laughing while everything around him gets destroyed. Long Hair Mark. This version is quite authentic but somewhat rebellious Mark, someone who doesn't align with any side nor has firm loyalties. He's not a defender of humanity, his only interest is what benefits him most in the moment. This Mark is a solitary strategist who acts solely in his own interest without caring about consequences for others. If collaborating with an empire or allying with humanity serves him, he'll do it, but only if he can obtain something from it. His benefit changes, so does his loyalty, which makes him completely unpredictable and to some extent dangerous. His approach has led him to acquire quite impressive experience in combat, especially against space threats. Throughout his adventures, he has faced and defeated countless extraterrestrial enemies, which has provided him vast knowledge about creatures and civilizations beyond Earth itself. This knowledge has given him considerable strategic advantage, since he understands how many cosmic dangers think, fight, and operate. He knows how to adapt to different types of combat, allowing him to survive and thrive in a universe full of many unknown threats. Though he has no noble cause nor seeks to save humanity, his experience and skills make him a formidable rival. He's not the typical hero, but not the typical villain either. He's a survivor who always follows the path that suits him best, regardless of which side he's on. His attitude is selfish, and his ability to navigate between different factions makes him most dangerous in his universe, where loyalties are shifting and betrayal is quite common. Viltrumite Mark. This version is quite dark and complex. Though he wears a Viltrumite suit, he's not just a simple soldier in service of the Viltrumanites. Actually, he joined his father Omni-Man with the idea of dominating Earth and creating an empire that would go beyond the planet. His thirst for power led him to make extreme decisions, becoming an unstoppable tyrant with the desire to rule humanity itself. Despite his great power, this Mark is quite careless and arrogant compared to others. He's not an intelligent leader or a careful strategist. His self-confidence leads him to make certain mistakes that often go unnoticed because people see him as Omni-Man's son. This lack of care allows him to rule using brute force and showing indifference to the details of his dominion. In his universe, this Mark is Earth's ruler, a tyrant who has already subjected humanity under his control. However, very little is known about how he reached that position or what happens in his world. The details of his universe are unknown or have been hidden by him. What is known is that his story ends quite tragically, as in an ironic and quite cruel twist, this Mark was finally devoured by another variant. Mark with Mask. This Mark has an even more interesting story. Unlike other versions, he doesn't use an inherited or given suit, but created it himself. His costume combines elements of his first suit with details that reflect his own identity. It's a mix of his past as a warrior and what he has become now, an autonomous and destructive being. The cape, colors, and details of his suit are designed to highlight his own power and individuality, making it clear that this Mark is not a soldier, but a leader who forges his own destiny. Mark Prisoner. This is a completely shattered version, both physically and mentally, wearing a Viltruminite suit that symbolizes certain power and obedience. His once human skin is marked by horrible scars. These burns and damage are the result of years of torture, both physical and psychological. After refusing to join the Viltruminites, refusing to be part of their empire, he suffered brutal punishment, burns, mutilations, and endless beatings. But his will to resist never broke. Though his body was permanently marked by the suffering he lived through, despite his terrifying appearance, this is a version of Mark who is a quite formidable warrior. His power remains incredibly high, and his vast knowledge about the universe and its threats make him a very dangerous opponent. Upon arriving on Earth, he began his reign of destruction, attacking different parts of the world with unstoppable fury. Every city he touched was destroyed. It was evident that each blow, each battle, his attack on Earth had no clear purpose. He simply wanted to unleash chaos, perhaps as a form of revenge for the torture suffered, or as an attempt to regain control over his own destiny. Despite his strength and fury, this Mark's story ended tragically and cruelly. In an ironic and quite cruel twist, this Mark died not at the hands of someone powerful, but was devoured. His desire for revenge led him to underestimate those around him, and at some point, something or someone in his universe trapped and consumed him, taking with it even the remains of his ambition. Omni-Mark. This is an intriguing version. Though he has suffered and been tortured, he has gained a maturity and sensibility that make him stand out among the other versions of himself. Something in his nature has led him to adopt a more calculating and serious attitude, similar to his own father. But despite his behavior resembling his father's, he doesn't respect or admire him. On the contrary, he sees him as a trophy of his own capability and strength. For this Mark, Omni-Man is not his mentor nor a venerated father figure, but a trophy of his own capability and strength. Having killed his own father with his own hands has become a symbol of power and determination, and that feat is engraved in his memory as a very personal victory. This Mark is so different because he doesn't act on impulses or emotions. Instead, he has a very strategic and somewhat cold mentality. He makes decisions cautiously without falling into the impulsivity that characterizes other versions of him. This maturity doesn't mean he's abandoned his dark side. Though his behavior is more rational and calculating, he remains a very strong threat. His lack of respect towards his own father demonstrates that inside there's only room for his own ego and the belief that he is the strongest being. The death of Omni-Man was not just a murder, it was a declaration of power. By finishing off the most feared being of Empire, this Mark made it clear that though his origins were Viltruminite, he no longer followed any loyalty, neither familial nor political. It was a transcendent act that left him as a more dangerous being with an unwavering confidence and arrogance. Dark Invincible. This Mark is a much more complex version than the previous ones. His completely black suit with dark details transmits power and mystery. However, what really stands out is his face completely hidden under a black mask, giving him an imposing and enigmatic appearance. His design reflects a mix of darkness and control, but behind that design there's something deeper, a being who, despite all, carries a significant emotional weight. Though this Mark killed his own father in an impressive feat, what many don't know is that inside he holds deep affection for his deceased mother's figure. His past and the circumstances that led him to this point have marked him in a way that make him much more human than he appears, despite the brutality he can demonstrate, showing that he has hidden sensitivity. His kindness and willingness to be compassionate with those who cross his path are quite fundamental parts of his own personality, though only some manage to perceive this facet of the character. This Mark is a man divided between his love for his mother and his desire to surpass his father. His father's death was the result of his internal struggle and desire to show that he could be greater and stronger. Mark without mask. This Mark is a fascinating and unique version who has completely embraced the dark side, but in a much more strategic and calculating way than previous versions. His face is completely exposed, which can reflect an internal complexity that defines and distinguishes him. Unlike other villains who act out of pure evil or impulse, this Mark has a clear objective, and his involvement in the war has a deeper purpose, more distorted than simply the thirst for power. He joined the villain side during the war. He did it not because of a cruel or destructive nature, but because he believes this is the only path to achieve what he considers necessary order for his universe. His distorted vision of justice makes him a very strong adversary, but not one without humanity. Despite having moved away from his original morality, he still shows signs of reasonability and calm, knowing when to act and when to wait. Unlike other marks, this is not a being who acts on impulse. Although capable of great cruelty, he executes his assassinations with precision and strategy. He doesn't seek to cause unnecessary pain, but when he decides someone must die, he does it quickly, without hesitation or remorse. His own nature is passive in some moments, which should not be confused with weakness, but rather reflects absolute control over his actions and cold rationality about his decisions. Savage Mark. This is a profoundly disturbing version designed to be a very fearsome enemy. He's sadistic and full of malice. His face, visible at all times, reflects a nature of ruthlessness and cruelty that feeds on violence and other sufferings. The absence of goggles and mask, something characteristic of his original counterpart, not only exposes his face, but symbolizes his total lack of concealment or shame regarding his own true nature. His gaze, full of emotion and malice, is a reflection of a being who enjoys every moment of battle, especially when his opponents are very strong. What makes this mark practically terrifying isn't just his strength, but his mentality. He doesn't just seek to win. His objective is to maximize the excitement of the fight. The stronger the rival, the better for him to defeat them. The pain and suffering of his opponents don't affect him morally, but feed him. He delights in every scream, every resistance, every time his enemy faces him, especially in the desperation that begins to reflect in the eyes of those who face him. This isn't someone arrogant. His sadism is primarily in the need to control the flow of battle, to turn each encounter into a macabre game. He mocks his own rivals, not just as a way to humiliate them, but because he really enjoys prolonging the fight, extending the suffering before delivering the final blow. For him, victory isn't just the battle's result, but the satisfaction he finds in the emotional torment he leaves in his wake. He attacked the team base with incredible brutality. He had no mercy while destroying everything in his path, finishing off the heroes one by one. Adam Eve tried to hold him with her power, but he broke her defense effortlessly and defeated her without hesitation. Duplicate created many copies to surround him, but Mark moved so fast he eliminated them before she could react. Rex Splode, seeing the massacre, understood he had no chance of winning. In a normal fight, as a last resort, he decided to risk his life. He launched himself against Mark with all his bombs ready to explode, hoping to at least stop him. The explosion was so big, it destroyed almost the entire base, leaving it in ruins, but when the smoke cleared, it was all over. Sinister Mark. This is the version that stands out not only for his appearance, but for his own sadistic and brutal nature. His cape waves with every movement, giving him an even more intimidating presence on the battlefield, and his suit with black details reinforces the darkness of his personality. He is another Invincible. He's an aberration among them, being an unpredictable whose only purpose seems to be chaos and destruction itself. Unlike other marks who, to a lesser or greater extent, maintain certain moral codes, this one has completely abandoned any trace of humanity. His psychopathy makes him an unpredictable threat, since he doesn't follow logical behavior patterns nor has limits in his violence. His cruelty knows no borders, and his actions demonstrate twisted pleasure in others' sufferings. One of the most atrocious acts he committed was the murder of his own mother. He showed no remorse or doubt. He eliminated her as if she were any other obstacle in his path. But his bloodlust didn't stop there. His violence extended to hundreds, perhaps thousands of victims, many of whom not only died at his hands, but suffered before their end. This mark doesn't just kill, but prolongs his victims' pain, enjoying every instant. His greatest achievement, and perhaps the most impactful event of his universe, was the defeat of Omni-Man, the supreme warrior of the Viltrumites. Few can even face him in combat, but this mark didn't just do it, but surpassed him with unprecedented brutality. He managed to finish off who once was the most feared being in his reality, demonstrating that his strength and sadism had no comparison. To be even more terrifying about his existence, this Mark doesn't settle for physical violence. He's a cannibal. He doesn't just destroy his enemies, but feeds on them, as a declaration of his absolute superiority and contempt for life. It's unknown what events led to his transformation into a monster, as his universe remains shrouded in certain mystery. However, what is clear is that this Invincible doesn't seek redemption, nor has noble motivations. He just wants to see the world burn and make sure he's the one who lights the flame. Without a doubt, for me, this is the best variant of Mark over the original, because he brutally destroyed many variants and eats them. But you can leave your point of view in comments. I invite you to watch more of my videos. I know you'll love them. Come on, what are you waiting for? Like the video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell for the notifications.